going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Friday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. We are sponsored by Vivid Picks. As you're rolling in, you know the drill. My friends, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you can keep up with all of our shows, all of our shenanigans. We'll have a nice little Saturday show for you tomorrow. We get a little wild on Saturday, but hope if you are in the United States of America, your Thanksgiving was great. You watched some football. I had a Millie Maker sweat last night going into the late game. I had a unique lineup in 69th, nice, going into the late game, but didn't have McCaffrey in the right spots. Hope you guys won some money yesterday. Now we turn our attention back to Black Friday deals, some hockey. My wife wants to buy a $600 vacuum. We do have 4 dogs, though, so it's probably worth it. How was your day off yesterday?
Good and bad. I mean, I lost power Wednesday at supper time, and it didn't come back for 18 hours, so that wasn't great. I had to do some fantasy hockey writing sitting in the parking lot of a Tim Hortons at 5 o'clock in the morning, which is not what you want to do. But I went to go see Napoleon yesterday. Really enjoyed it. Thought it was a good movie. Not a great movie, but certainly a good movie. Good action set pieces. Watched a little bit of football last night. Just ready to kind of, I want to say enjoy the day of hockey, but I haven't watched a second of hockey yet because we've been working on this slate. But full slate, full day of games. Can't really complain about that. So 6 games tonight. Couple interesting matchups. Unfortunately, we have Seattle again. I'm glad they got their expansion team, but they're really starting to grind my gears. But anyway, we'll get to that game a little bit later. I'm just intrigued by a couple of these matchups, especially with a lot of injury news across the slate that we'll get to when we talk about those games that could change how we look at some of those games.
Yeah. My wife says you want the vacuum just as much as I do. I like expensive toys. I'm a diva. I like, I have some expensive taste. So, yeah, I kind of do want the vacuum. Also, big news, and it's not really surprising because it's the Flyers and Mika Zibanejad absolutely nukes the Flyers. The Rangers' top line has three goals at 5-on-5 today.
Mika scored on his first shift. His first 5-on-5 goal of the season comes after Thanksgiving.
Of course, the Flyers, he's on a hat trick watch. He scored 5 goals against the Flyers last year or something like that.
Yeah, so maybe that top line's turning around and making a pretty formidable top 6 moving forward. We'll see.
Blake Wheeler, even though he has 2 primary assists, this is a fun little 6-gamer, though. I'm glad that they kind of split slate this so we didn't have to have back-to-back slates. We're talking 15-game slates back-to-back. You have to rush through 14. We did it in 80 minutes the other day, and it just felt like we didn't give it enough attention that we could. So 6 gamers, we can at least break down the games, can actually give you some good information. Not that we don't on the 14 games. It just feels a little rushed. So I do like the 6 gamers. Let's get into the slate. But again, before we do, for Black Friday, that's today, get any Sims package 50% off for new customers. The deal ends on Sunday. If you signed up with the Millie promo, don't worry, we got you. You'll be emailed a coupon that will allow you to renew your sub for 50% off your next payment. Because we're nice. Build up to 10,000 lineups in Stochastic, 5,000 for NBA, in 60 seconds with our contest generator. The base package allows you to build up to 500 lineups and export up to 20. The max package allows you to build up to 10,000 lineups, 5,000 for NBA, with unlimited exports. So you can click the link in the description below. You can go to stochastic.com. You'll see it. You click it. You do it. If you did sign up with the Millie promo, you'll get the email. Let's hop into this slate. Let's start with my boys. They're not really my boys, but my biggest wins of the season last year with them New York Islanders. They 3.1 total. Heading into Ottawa, the Senators have a 3.3 total. Had a little moment of lapse there. I forgot their names. Senators back from Sweden, and they're going to be going with Kachuk, Norris, Tarasenko, Stützle, Giroux, Joseph, third line of Batherson, Kubalik, and Roby Giraventi. I don't really like these Ottawa lines. I don't know. DJ Smith, I'm kind of growing tired of him. But, what can you do? You can just, maybe not stack them. The top line of Tarasenko, Norris, Kachuk, 17,600, coming in very high owned on the 6-game slate with a little bit of negative leverage, over 14% projected. They'll probably see a fair bit of the Islanders' Brock Nelson line. That line, their best Islanders line, but they still trade chances. So if you want to do that, it's fine. Like, I think for me, Ottawa, I want to go Stützle, Giroux. The thing is, Islanders' penalty kill has been pretty bad. So, maybe power play stacking. I know you like some depth of Ottawa. I'll let you talk about that. I want to steal your thunder there. So I'll let you talk about them. On the Islanders side, we've talked about it. That top line is, I don't know, man. The Islanders, it's really for me that second line, or figure out someone that can play up on the top line consistently, create a bunch. I don't know. They've tried Wallstrom up there. He's been bad. They've tried Lee up there. He's, he doesn't have any knee ligaments. You know what I mean? They got to figure something out there. So Islanders 2 for me, and Ottawa power play.
Yeah. I'll start on the Islanders side. We talked about on the Wednesday show how Barzal had gone on kind of a little streak. He had 6 points over a 4-game stretch. So, he was starting to come around. I think the big thing about Barzal is he's starting to shoot more too. He has 15 shots in his last 5 games. 3 shots per game is pretty good for him. It's funny. It's funny you say they got to figure out somebody to play, because I think I dropped it in the Discord today. It might have been on Twitter. I'm just,
everything blends together.
Yeah. Simon Holmstrom is second on the team in goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5, behind only Brock Nelson. So he's scoring, but Horvat and Barzal are not. It's a wild scene, man. And it's the same problem that we've always talked about. It's way, 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 way too many shots from the blue line. Honestly, if you look at their shot chart with the line on the ice, it looks like Brent Burns in San Jose from 7 years ago. It's absolutely crazy. That's kind of the problem. Their last 100 minutes together, they're at 70 shot attempts per 60 minutes, which is a lot of shot attempts to create. They're at 2.4 expected goals, which is below the league average. And it's because they're just bombing shots from the point and hoping for a deflection or hoping for a rebound, which it can work. It's very unlikely to. That's kind of the problem if your defenseman bombing shots from the point. Not to mention that they're going to be going up against that Stützle-Giroux line. And I agree with you on the Ottawa lines, and we'll talk about that in a second. The thing is that line is really good. Stützle and Giroux are at 1.7 expected goals against per 60 minutes. As long as, I guess the problem is because it's Anton Forsberg starting tonight. I believe Korpisalo was injured. Forsberg's been pretty rough so far this season. There's a pretty good reason why. I mean, besides injuries and all that, there is a reason why Korpisalo was taking so many starts. It's because, I think Forsberg had one good game when they were over in Sweden. Other than that, his save percentage is 850 or 860 or something like that. Pitiful. Stuff that would get you demoted to the AHL. So that's what kind of worries me. But, that Ottawa second line is a really bad matchup for the Islanders top line. So I agree with you. I'm out on Islanders 1. Islanders 2, I think, is kind of where it's at for me. The Ottawa middle six. Ottawa top line is probably average-ish defensively. And, it's not awful, but it's not something to fear if you're that second line going in. And I was looking at the Islanders second line to see if their numbers have been falling off lately. Just in November, they're still at 3.9 expected goals for per 60 minutes. Kyle Palmieri's second on the team in shots per minute at all strengths. Brock Nelson is first. So the 2 shot happiest forwards on this team, at least over the last few weeks, are both playing on this line. I wrote up Brock Nelson in the article today, picks article, free to read almost every day over at stokastic.com. Just head on over to the NHL section. The Senators are allowing about 30% more shot attempts at 5-on-5 with the Giroux-Stützle line off the ice. And Brock Nelson is on pace for over 40 goals this year. And it's not a shooting percentage bender. I think he's at a 3-year low in shooting percentage. It's the fact that he's creating so many shots for himself. And, his teammates are for him as well. He's had a career high shot attempt rate, 35% higher than his previous career high. Like, it's still kind of a small sample. We're only a quarter of the way into the season, but it's still a quarter of the way into the season. I really like Islanders too here. They're not coming in with a ton of ownership on DraftKings. I think they're coming in with a lot more ownership on FanDuel. So if you're on, or it's the other way around, sorry, a lot more ownership on DraftKings and less on FanDuel. So I think FanDuel, they make a lot more sense. I don't think you necessarily have to include Engvall. He is kind of like the straw that stirs the drink on that line, but at the same token, he's not a guy that shoots a lot. He's not a guy that scores a lot. Like, even if he puts up, he might put up like 10 or 11 DK points, and that'd be fine for his price, but I don't think he's a must. But yeah, I do like the matchup a lot better for Islanders too. Islanders 3 is just not been good, so I don't want them, and I'm going to talk about why I do like the Ottawa third line in a second. On the Ottawa side, like, getting to the line compositions, Josh Norris, like, most centers have some playmaking component to their game. It's not very often that you have a center, a top 6 center especially, that basically just scores goals, and that's basically what Norris is. He is not a playmaking center at all. And Brady Tkachuk's playmaking numbers were pretty good last year. They've taken a dive so far this year. And then you have Vladimir Tarasenko on the other side, who's actually turned into the playmaker now. He's getting older. He's like 32 or 33 now. Like, he's not shooting nearly as much as he used to. And Tarasenko actually leads this team in assists on teammates scoring chances per minute so far this season. Like, Vladimir Tarasenko on a team with Tim Stützle, with Claude Giroux, with Brady Tkachuk, who, like I said, had good playmaking numbers last year, is leading this team in playmaking, in some of the playmaking stats I look at. So you're banking on a very one-way Tarasenko because his defense is just not apparent. You're banking on a very one-way Tarasenko to do all the playmaking on that line, or maybe the defenseman like Chychrun or Brandstrom or something. It's just a lot to ask. Like, I don't think it's a bad matchup for Ottawa 1. And, you get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit with Tkachuk and Norris. So I get wanting to play them, but it's not like they're coming in with super low ownership. They're like 11% on FanDuel, 14% on DraftKings. They're coming in with negative leverage per the top stacks tool over on DK. So it's not like, a lot of times you and I play Ottawa when they're like 2, 3, 4%. That's not going to be the case here tonight. There's the top stacks for the second line, and the top line 14.1%. So because it's a good power play matchup, I don't have a real problem playing the top line. I just don't know if I'm going to be getting there because I think they're coming in with a little bit too much ownership for me. The second line, they are really, really good. Stützle, Giroux, Matthew Joseph. Stützle on the top power play unit. He's also only shooting 9.1%, which I think is a career low for him. Been over 10% every season of his career so far. They are creating quite a bit. I just think it's a lot of a tougher matchup going up against the Nelson, or not the Nelson, sorry, the Horvat Barzal line, because they are pretty good. They are a pretty good defensive line with Holmstrom there. So I don't mind Ottawa 2. Ottawa 3 is where it gets interesting for me. I did write up Drake Batherson in the power play article here today. I think he makes a pretty good one-off here tonight. Like, him and Kubalik are basically league average by expected goals for numbers. The thing is the Islanders third line that they're going to be matched up against a fair bit here tonight is terrible. Like, Jean-Gabriel Pageau has the worst expected goals impacts on the team. The next worst impacts are Oliver Wahlstrom. And you were talking about Anders Lee, like, really being kind of a shell of his former self. After the knee surgery, it's not a good line. 2.3 expected goals for, 3.6 against. Shot attempts for and against per 60 minutes with them on the ice are 51 for, 86 against. They're getting run over. So like, while I don't think this Ottawa 3 line is like a hidden gem or anything like that, I just think it's a really, really good matchup for them. And you get Batherson on the top power play unit. So I do like Ottawa 3. I would probably just do like a 2-man of Batherson and Kubalik, because they moved Jarvinty off that line quite a bit, I think with good reason. So I do like Ottawa 3. I think my favorite stack in this game is honestly just an Ottawa power play stack. I think you can even stack like across 3 lines, like do like a Kachuk, Stützle, Batherson stack. I think that's kind of my favorite stack in this entire game. But if we're looking at just even strength lines, it's Islanders 2, Ottawa 3, Ottawa 1.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of like, you talk about Norris's lack of playmaking ability. That's why I'm kind of surprised he doesn't play with Giroux, because Giroux is probably their best playmaker. But
it just seems weird because they had Giroux on the top line with Kachuk for a while, but it was while Stützle was also there, and then they moved Stützle down and they bring Giroux with them. So it's like they want to leave that pairing forwards together. That's fine. It's just, what does it do to the rest of your lineup, especially because you have Grieg and Pinto both out of the lineup? Like, you're missing playmaking centers. You don't have a lot of playmaking wingers. We'll see what happens tonight.
Yeah, Pinto was on the Cowboys -13 last night, by the way. But anyway, Tampa Bay Lightning with a 2.8 total. Heading into Carolina, the Hurricanes have a 3.6 total. We were talking about this. The first thing we talked about when we got on together, the totals we put in our run sheet and the opening totals were before Vasilevsky got confirmed. Like, Vasilevsky's back for the Lightning tonight. We were both expecting the Hurricanes total to come down. It hasn't moved. So, like, Vegas is expecting Jonas Johansson in like a Jonas Johansson performance in that. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not really sure what to make of it.
And sorry, just to ut in for a second. And like, the rumors had been that from a couple days ago were that Vasilevsky would be starting this game. So it's not like it opened at a 3.7 and they're expecting Jonas Johansson. I'm assuming people making the lines thought Vasilevsky was going to be starting as well, because I know I did. So like, it's high.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, he's on the wrong side of 30 for a goalie. He's coming back from back surgery. He's had a wildly high workload the past few years with all the Lightning Cup runs. It's hard to say from a macro perspective in DFS what it's going like, how it's going to impact him tonight. Like, we can say, oh, he's going to have a 41 save shutout. Oh, 6 goals on 28 shots. Like, both are possible outcomes for any goalie on any night. Like, it's so hard to say like how all of this is going to impact it tonight. So you go off the total, right? And you see the ownership on Carolina, and it's just like, I don't know, man. Like, if Carolina's going to be chalk, I know playing the goalie against chalk isn't how you leverage an NHL slate, but like, Vasilevsky's cheap here tonight. So like, maybe you play Vasilevsky, but at the same token, like, Svechnikov, Kotkaniemi, Netchis, 14-4 against the Tampa middle six, which isn't very good because John Cooper is insistent on keeping Cirelli and Stamkos together, which hasn't worked since the Reagan administration. It's just like, I don't know, man. Like, I think Carolina's a good play, but like, what Vasilevsky are you going to get? So like, I think then you throw the ownership component into it, and you're kind of like, I don't really want to take that chance. One, because Vasilevsky can, shut anyone down. Two, they're going to be owned. So like, do I really want to play a chalky Carolina against Vasilevsky? So I think in my 1 to 3, I'm going to be looking elsewhere, but like, I think they are, just with the unknowns of this game, like, I think they're a good MME play.
Yeah. Just to start on the Carolina side, this is the ownership you were talking about. That second line, 11.5% ownership, 5.5% top 2 stack. That's on DraftKings. On FanDuel, it's even higher, 22.7% ownership. It's a lot. I did write up that line for the picks article today, mainly because of where they're priced, right? Like, it's a 14,400 line. There are expensive spots on this slate, but you can pretty much put them with almost any stack outside of Colorado, right? You might have to mess around a little bit with Vancouver. You probably can't full power play stack or something like that there. But they are playable with just about everybody. So you add that to the fact that they're not going to go up against Tampa's top line. Carolina, one thing they're very consistent about is how they match their lines when they're at home. When they're at home, it's Jordan Stahl's line out against the opposing top line. And Jordan Stahl's line, they've gotten better defensively since I last checked in on them, which feels like they were at, I remember looking a few weeks ago, and they were at 2.0 expected goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, which is like an excellent defensive number. They're at 1.3 now.
Yeah, they're a wet blanket. They're just a wet blanket.
They're allowing 0.3 goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. They've been on the ice for 1 goal against this season. 1. And when you consider how bad the Carolina goaltending has been, it's incredible what they're doing. So I'll get to Tampa in a sec. That's why I'm kind of not super excited on Tampa 1, but they do go out against opposing top lines. Then they use Sebastian Aho against opposing third lines. So tonight that means going out against that Taylor Jeannot line. It's not a great matchup, but we don't really have a sample without Mikey Esamont on that line because he's up on the second line, which is just incredible stuff. And, Nick Paul had been on the second line for most of the season. So we don't have much of a sample there, but, Jeannot's been pretty good defensively this season. Tyler Mott is usually a responsible defensive winger. So I imagine it's not a great matchup for Carolina 1 either. The matchup to take advantage of is against Tampa's second line. You and I talk about how, you brought up how Cirelli and Stamkos just haven't been working for a while. Like it's been a couple of years since that duo was I'm not talking like even like league average. I'm talking like awful together. In fact, I was looking at, because Cirelli and Esamont have played together not quite a bit, but about 80 minutes together so far this season. 87 shot attempts for, 48 against, 3.9 expected goals for, 1.6 against per 60 minutes. Like those are like just tremendous numbers. It's basically the inverse with Stamkos and Cirelli. So that's why I'm kind of interested to see how that all works out. But I think it's a matchup that can be taken advantage of because I like Esamont a lot. I think he's a very underrated player. I also don't think he's going to be on the top line or on the second line the entire game. So I think that's why it's a pretty good matchup for Carolina too. You get Netjes on the top power play. It's not really a great power play matchup. Tampa doesn't really take a lot of penalties. They're at 2.9 times shorthanded per game. I think the league average is still around 3.5, so they're well below that. But the Svechnikov, Kuk, and Yemi are at 3.9 expected goals per 60 minutes. So far this season, Svech has been skating more ice time per game over his last 4 or 5 games as he's worked his way back from knee injury. They're still looking for he's still looking for his first goal. Maybe it'll come tonight against Tampa. I just think, yes, there is negative leverage on Carolina too. There is definitely reason to want to not play them. I just think they're also in the best matchup when you look at how consistent Carolina is matching their lines. So, I mean, I have to say it. I do like Carolina too. Carolina 1, I think it's perfectly fine to go back to them. None of them are really shooting that much, though. I was looking at their numbers over the last 3 weeks. Nobody on that line is over 15 shot attempts per 60 minutes. And when you consider that as a line, they're at 70, that means probably half of their shots are coming from defensemen, which it's the Islanders thing all over again. And I think this is they're a more talented blue line, so I don't mind the defensemen shooting as much. They're more talented forwards as well, so I don't mind all that. I just think it's a pretty good spot for Carolina too. So I do like Carolina too on that side. On the Tampa side, I do like having Hagel on the top line. I just think even as bad as the Carolina goaltending is, like I said, the third line, the Jordan Stahl shutdown line has been on the ice for 1 goal against this year. That is absolutely insane to just think about. So I'm out on Tampa 1, out on Tampa 3. I don't think they're going to stay together. Tampa 2 it's actually the second line that I do have interest in because, like I said, Cirelli and Esamont have played well together. Stamkos is Stamkos. All he needs is just 1 clean shot and he's on the board. You know what I mean? They don't really need to create a ton. The Carolina second line's been a little bit better than league average defensively, but not elite or anything like that. There's certainly no Jordan Stahl line or anything like that. So I guess if anything on the Tampa side, it would be Tampa 2. But I think it's Carolina who I like best in this game, and by quite a bit.
Yeah, it's just the ownership thing for me and Vasi. It's like kind of making my head spin a little bit, kind of like concussions and claws, which we'll have tomorrow. But anyway, if you are interested in taking your game to the next level, I know you guys are, and I know there are some of you who are not premium yet in this chat. It's not required, but you should click that link in the description box below to get access to the best NHL data and tools in the industry. You get player and ownership projections, top stacks tools, line combinations, and the Discord. A lot of crazy stuff in that Discord. Lots of sharp minds, lots of stuff. I don't even know how to explain the Discord. You just got to get in there and check it out for yourself. Cliffy's showing the different tools that we show or that we use on the show from time to time. So again, that Discord, click that link in the description box below. As always, Cliffy's article, always free to read on stochastic.com. Just click the NHL tab. This show, obviously, always free, as long as you hit the like button whenever it is. So, yeah. Let's move on to the next one here. The Winnipeg Jets with a 3.1 total. Heading into Florida, the Panthers have a 3.5 total. Alexander Barkov back in the lineup here. So the Florida lines are going to be Barkov, Reinhart, Evan Rodriguez, and then Matthew Tkachuk, Carter Verhaeghe, Sam Bennett. That moves Lundell back down to the third line with E2D2 Luosterainen and Nicky Cousins. Status quo for Winnipeg here. Heavy ownership on the Tkachuk line. Heavy ownership on the Tkachuk line. I mean, listen, they're the best. Like going back to last year, they're the best Florida line. Like that combination is just gasoline. Like not like 89 octane. Like we're talking like 94. We're getting to like, maybe some race fuel there. Like they have been excellent. So, and they're cheaper than the top line. They are coming in with some positive leverage too, but almost 16% projected ownership. Probably going to see Hellebuck too, but this is a pretty good matchup for them. From an ownership standpoint, if you want to go to that Barkov line, like, yeah, they're going to see Scheifele, Connor, Iafallo, but like 3%. You get two guys on the top power play unit. Evan Rodriguez hasn't been great recently, but like you don't like he's not like a third wheel. Like I don't know. Like I don't want to name a third wheel because then Clayton's going to write it down, put him in the slander lineup, and he's going to hat trick. So I'm going to. But like I don't mind from an ownership standpoint going to Florida 1 here, but Florida 2 is my favorite. On the Winnipeg side, this is a flowchart special. That top line, 2.7% in a tough matchup against Barkov. So, like, me, I'd probably go over the field.
Yeah, this is definitely a absolute flowchart special. Barkov back. The top line is going to be better defensively. It's going to help out the penalty kill. Florida's penalty kill has been really good, when their goaltending hasn't sucked, et cetera, et cetera. This is an absolute flowchart special for the Winnipeg top line. On the Florida side, like I'll just bring up the ownership that you were talking about, like high ownership on that second line, 15.5% on DraftKings, over 20% on FanDuel. I think justifiably so. There are two guys on that line that are probably going to be on the top power play unit. Winnipeg's penalty kill has just been really, really bad this year. That's one thing I wrote about in the picks article because I did write up Matthew Tkachuk. In 18 games, they've given up 16 power play goals against, which is like, that's just not good. And, Kachuk's been a little bit snake bitten. So eventually the goals are going to flow, and they're going to flow fast for him. That's kind of the thing with Tkachuk right now is he's at 3 goals. He should probably have like 10 or 11. There's going to be a week here where he has like 6 goals in 4 games or something like that. It's going to happen here probably in the next month. That second line is creating. They're up to 50 minutes together, 3.2 expected goals for. You get 2 out of the 3 guys, like I said, on the top power play unit. Winnipeg's penalty kills bad. So I do like Florida too. Here's the thing. I think I'm on the Florida 1 train tonight, and that's something I don't often say. Usually I am somebody that goes to the Tkachuk Verhaeghe line. I think tonight it's actually a better matchup for Florida's top line. Brendan Dillon, Winnipeg defenseman, they called him a game time decision. He's been pretty good defensively for the team so far this year. They don't have anybody that can come in and replace him. And it's not a high bar, but it's one of those things like if you take somebody that's been good and replace them with somebody that's going to be bad, and then everybody else has to move positions or roles or whatever, it just changes a lot. And, like I said, the Winnipeg penalty kill has been very bad. The Florida top line with Rodriguez there, very, very good. Like, I don't know why they broke them up. I'm going to be honest. They're at 2.9 expected goals for, 2.2 against in over 130 minutes together. 6.3 actual goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5, 0.9 against, and they broke them up. I'm still trying to figure out why. Reinhart's been on a little bit of a slide lately. He was pretty hot through the first few weeks of the season. He's one of the guys that helped carry this team, actually. He's been on a little bit of a slide, but the Winnipeg top line has actually been their worst defensive line. The Winnipeg top line is at 2.8 expected goals against per 60 minutes. That's below average. 2.7 actual goals against. So I think the Barkov line is in the best 5-on-5 matchup. You get 2 out of 3 guys on the top power play unit going up against a penalty kill that's been pretty bad this season. They might be missing one of their better defensive defensemen as well. Like, I think things are just lining up very well for the Florida top line here. As we showed on the top stacks, like the ownership, they're coming in 4% owned against nearly 16% for Florida too. So a quarter of the ownership, and they're only coming in with half the top 2 stacks. So I think the math kind of lines up for taking Florida 1 here. So I do like the Florida top line. I have no problem with either of the top 2 Florida lines. They're both really, really good. If you're worried about Barkov coming back from injury, maybe he only plays 16 minutes or maybe he leaves after the second period or something like that. Like, I get it. Like, it's a valid concern. It's just, for me, if he's in the lineup, I treat him like he's all systems go. So it's Florida 1 for me. Like I said, second line is fine. I just think I'd rather go with the lower ownership. Florida 3, I don't think is in play. I will say Lundell and Cousins have been pretty good defensively this year, and that's important for this matchup because Winnipeg's third line's actually been pretty good. Like, I slander Mason Appleton a lot, but he's found a home in that third line with Adam Lowry and Mito Niederreiter. They've been really good. The Winnipeg second line is, like, you brought up the Winnipeg top line. I think it's a bad matchup for them. It's a bad matchup against Barkov. As long as Bobrovsky doesn't fall on his face, the penalty kill for Florida has generally been really, really good. But they aren't coming in with that much ownership, so I certainly understand wanting to play Winnipeg 1 here. I'm at the point now where I think you can leave Iafallo off. I think he has like one assist and 6 shots in his last 5 games, and that's with Kyle Connor going on the tear that he's been on. So it's like, hey man, what are you doing here? But the Winnipeg second line, 1.9 expected goals for, 1.9 against per 60 minutes so far this season. Like, they're not creating a lot. They're just riding some really good percentages. Vladislav Nemesnikov over his last 3 weeks is at 4.5 shot attempts per 60 minutes. Like, you'll see dozens of players put that up just tonight alone. Like, that's like, he's not shooting at all. So it's all on Perfidi in Ehlers. And Ehlers' shot rate has been going down. I wrote about that elsewhere this morning. His shot rate's been going down since the start of the season. So Nemestikov's not shooting at all. Ehlers' shot rate's gone down like 30%. Perfidi's not a guy that shoots a ton to begin with anyway. I think for me, it's Winnipeg 1 or bust from this game on the Winnipeg side. I think it's Florida 1 that I really, really like most in this matchup. I will say I don't hate the idea of a Winnipeg 3 here if you need a super cheap stack to go with your Colorado or Vancouver or whatever, but I think it's both top lines and Florida 1 more than the other.
Yeah, and just one final Florida 1 point before we move on. I think this is the first time this iteration of this line, which has been excellent this year, has played with Montour and Ekblad in the lineup, which will only help them more.
Yeah. Well, it has. Yeah, you're right, because Rodriguez is just getting moved up, and they just came back last week. So yeah.
Calgary Flames, bad name, with a 2.6 total. Going into Dallas, the Stars have a 3.4 total. Dallas going back to their Original lines: Hintz, Robertson, Pavelski, Duchesne, Sagan, Marchment, Wyatt Johnson, Jamie Benn, Evgeny Dadonov. Calgary, it doesn't matter really. I don't know. Like, they're going Lindholm, Mangiapane, Sharangovich, back on Coleman, Huberdeau, Kadri, Pospisil, Dubé. So this game's in Dallas, so the Dallas top line is going to avoid that Coleman back on Huberdeau matchup. I kind of like going back to Dallas 1 here. They got reunited. Maybe them getting switched up, kind of maybe a little kick in the keister. I don't know, but they're coming in with positive leverage. They're only 18,600. We've seen them at times 22,000. Calgary goaltending, we've talked about it ad nauseum. It's not good. Going to avoid Backlund. Like, I don't fear the Lindholm, Mangiapane, Sharangovich line. I don't fear Kadri, Pospisil, Dubé. I think going back to Dallas 1 is a good play here. Our boys, Duchesne, Sagan, Marchment, probably going to get that Coleman Backlund matchup at least some of the time. Like, you can go to them. They're getting negative leverage now. They're still really cheap. I'd much rather, for comparable ownership, get that fully correlated top power play time. So Dallas 1 for me. On the Calgary side, like, I don't have much interest at all. But if I'm going to go to any line, it's going to be back on Coleman, Huberdeau.
So I can hear Jake, our boss Jake, in my head going, just play the good lines. I'm not even sure. I'm not sure which lines are the good lines in this game, other than the second line. And here's the thing: is, like, obviously the Dallas top line before the season has a huge sample of being one of the best lines in the league, like, just flat out one of the best offensive two-way lines in the league. That has not been the case this season, and it's not a matter of, they're getting a ton of chances and they're just not finishing, like Matthew Tkachuk that we just talked about in the Florida game. I was looking at some of their playmaking numbers this year. There's this website called All Three Zones that does game-by-game tracking. And scoring chance assists are exactly that. They're an assist on a teammate's scoring chance. And it's like a proxy for an actual assist because, there are more scoring chances than there are goals, et cetera, et cetera. So far this season, the top line for Dallas, Pavelski, Hintz, and Robertson, have combined for about 2.1 scoring chance assists per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. The league average is 3.1, and last year they were at 4.6. So and considering that they play with each other all the time, they're not assisting on any scoring chances or any reasonable rate of scoring chances so far this season. So this isn't a case where they're creating a lot and just getting unlucky. They're not creating anything. Like, they are well below average, especially over the last few weeks in creating offense. And that's why I'm kind of running into a problem here with Dallas, because, I agree with you. They're not coming in with much, like, considering 8.5% ownership on DraftKings here tonight. Like, if this were November 24th of last year and this line was 18,600 at home against Calgary, they would have been the first 3 names into my lineup. Yeah. This year, like, there are a lot of reasons not to play this line. Like, 1, they haven't been playing well. 2, Jacob Markstrom, after a pretty brutal start to the season, has actually been pretty good over the last 3-4 weeks. 3, Calgary doesn't take a lot of penalties. They're at 3.3 times shorthanded per game. That's below average. The penalty kill has also been pretty good besides that. This line is just getting reunited after being broken up. So if Calgary's up 2-0 after the first period, does this Dallas line start the second period together? I'm not sure. So I just think, like, there are a lot of reasons to play them, and it's mostly what they've done in previously. It's not necessarily what they've done this year. That's a big concern for me. So, like, I think I'm out on Dallas 1. It doesn't feel good because, like I said, 18,600, this line should be like a $22,000 line. they are not playing like it. They are playing like a $16,000 line, if we're being honest. And it's not like the one thing that they could hang their hat on was the power play has been really good this year. They're at like 12.7 goals per 60 minutes, which is like, it's not quite Edmonton numbers, but it would be like the next best team after Edmonton. You know what I mean? Over the course of a full season. But that's it. And then Calgary's penalty kill has been really good. So, like, I don't know. MME, like, yeah, for sure. Single entry. I just don't know if I can do it. The Johnston Ben to Donoff line has just not been good. They've been getting worse as the season's gone on, actually. I think that was part of breaking up the lines, too, is that they have not been good. They're at 1.9 expected goals for, 2.7 against over the last 3 weeks. Like I said, they've been getting worse. So, yeah, like, I guess if anything, it's back to the Duchesne, Seguin, Marchment line, but it's like, how many times can these guys do it? Like, they didn't have a good game last game. Dallas only scored 1 goal. And I think it was Joe Pavelski that scored, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, of course.
We're doing well. Yeah.
But, like, the line is shooting over 17%, right? And we've been seeing what happens to lines when they ride that hot. Like, look at Larkin, DeBrincat, and Raymond. Like, I think DeBrincat actually scored today. So maybe not the best example, but they got broken up because after a great 2 weeks, they just went into a big funk. And it's because shooting percentage crashed. And that's going to happen in this Duchesne line. I just think they're the best line that Dallas has at the moment. And maybe their only good line right now, which is absolutely wild to think about when you look at all the talent that they have. So I think the Duchesne line for me, but I'm going to be honest, I'm not really excited about stacking anything on the Dallas side. On the Calgary side, I wrote up the Coleman, Backlund, Huberdeau line because I think that is a pretty good line at 5-on-5, 2.9 expected goals for, 72 shot or 3.2 expected goals for. 72 shot attempts per 60 minutes at 2.8 expected goals for. God, all mixed up here today. The problem is like Michael Backlund's just not scoring. I think he's down to 4% shooting. This isn't a guy that shoots like 12-13% anyway. I could see him going a full season shooting 4%. Like he's only usually at like 7-8% anyway. But they might get matched up against Dallas's one good line, which is the Duchesne line. So it's a little bit tough. Like I might pivot and actually go back to the Kadri, Zari, Pospisil line. Zari back in the lineup. They're not going to have a ton of ownership. Like all the Calgary lines are probably going to be around 5%, give or take, on either site. So probably Kadri, Pospisil, Zari. You get 2 out of 3 guys on the top power play unit. But I'm going to be honest, definitely not Calgary 1. I was looking at their numbers without Huberdeau. It feels wild to say their numbers are atrocious without Huberdeau. 2.1 expected goals for per 60 minutes without him on the line. Like that is just terrible. So I think Backlund, Coleman, and Huberdeau are certainly in play. I might pivot to Kadri, Zari, Pospisil. I'm going to be honest. I've been talking for about 4 or 5 minutes now. I don't think I'm going after a stack in this game. This game screams like maybe like 3-2 with like Mackenzie Weegar, like Nikita Zadorov gets one, and like Dylan Dubé and Yegor Sharangovich gets one. Wyatt Johnston gets one, and maybe Joe Pavelski tips in a power play goal, and then Esa Lindell. Like it just doesn't feel like a high scoring, concentrated game where one team is spreading out all their offensive players across 3 lines, and the other team might have one good line playing right now. So I'm just not super excited about it. I can't wait till this blows up in my face and it ends up like 6-4 or something like that.
It's like Dumb and Dumber. Simple no would have been just fine. No, but the Rangers should inquire about Elias Lindholm for their vacancy on the top line right wing. I think he's more suited for the wing than he is on the center.
I don't think he's suited for any top line, but that's another story for another day.
He's more suited than Blake Wheeler.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. Get a $300 deposit match on your first deposit with Vivid, who is our sponsor. The standard deposit match is $100, so you won't get this offer anywhere else than using the link in the description below. Your first entry on VivPicks comes with a $25 secure play. If If your first entry loses, you get it refunded up to $25 in Vivid Site credit. Predict whether these players have more or less than their projected stats across multiple sports and combine your selections for bigger payouts. If it was legal in New Jersey, I would definitely have taken advantage of that deposit match. You don't get that anywhere except for the link in the description box below. Colorado Avalanche with a 3.4 total heading into Minnesota. The Wild have a 3.1 total. Wild back from Sweden. Going with our boy Rossi back up on the top line with Kaprizov and Zuccarello. Joe Eriksson-Ek with Ryan Hartman and Marcus Foligno. Then Boldy with Mojo and Freddie Gaudreau, who is back. Looks like Nathan McKinnon's going to be in the lineup. They held him out of practice today for precautions after he blocked a shot off his hand in the last game, went for x-rays. If he's playing, obviously they were negative. Now, this game's in Minnesota, so that Colorado top line is going to be seeing Joe Eriksson-Ek, Ryan Hartman, Marcus Foligno. In a smallish sample, I think it's up to around 60 minutes, they are giving up 2.3 expected goals against per 60. Very good. McKinnon line, matchup proof. This is an excellent power play matchup. Like, even with Spurgeon back, their penalty kill has been pretty bad. So what can you really say about Colorado one, like, that we haven't said already this year? They're going to play their 20-plus minutes. They're going to get, a tough 5-on-5 matchup, but they got a tough 5-on-5 matchup the other night and ran. It's like they just run teams out of the building. So, like, you want to play Colorado one? Go for it. They're coming off back-to-back slates where they're in the winning lineup, right? They're 23-7, which is expensive, but their price really hasn't moved. That's what they've been. There's so many lines that you can fit them with here tonight. Like, you don't even have to try very hard to squeeze them in. It gets a little dicey if you want to add in Makar, but, like, you look at their top 2 stack percentage, it's over 40% on a 6 game. That doesn't mean that they're going to be a top 2 stack. Like, there's a 41.5% chance that they will be one of the 2 best stacks tonight. That's what that means. That means there's a 58.5% chance that they won't be. Some people get that wrong. You do what you want with Colorado one. I like them. I like them a lot. I also happen to really, really like Minnesota one here because they're going to get middle to bottom 6 matchups. Like, I know the Johansson, Duran, Tatar line in a small sample has very good defensive numbers, but Ryan Johansson's had a pretty miserable season. Rossi, Zuccarello, Kaprizov, when they were together, weren't an expected goals machine, but I think since then Zuccarello's kind of turned it around a little bit. I want to give them a second chance. They have positive leverage. Colorado takes a ton of penalties. At least 2 of the 3 will be on the top power play unit. I like both top lines.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the Colorado top line because of the McKinnon thing, right? Like, if he went to get x-rays on his hand and they were negative, that's all, obviously it's good news. It means there's no broken bones.
Probably a bone bruise.
Yeah, or just a regular bruise, but is he going to be like his shot happiest self here? And that's a fair question because McKinnon was under 20 shot attempts per 60 minutes over the previous 9 games as it was. So his shot rate had been going down since the start of the year. I think he had like back-to-back 7-shot games. Like, it's one of those things where he plays so many minutes that even if his shot rate does go down, like, he'll still be an elite volume shooter. And the top line has been excellent. 4 expected goals, 6.8 actual goals since they were united after the Lehkonen injury. Like, they've just been tearing apart teams. Even Valerie Nichushkin's been starting to shoot a lot more. It is just a pretty brutal matchup. Like, I was looking at Foligno and Joel Eriksson-Ek. 2.1 expected goals against, 1.4 actual goals against when they've been playing together so far this season. Like, it's a pretty brutal matchup for Colorado at 5-on-5, but it's arguably the best power play matchup that they'll have in a game this year. Minnesota is giving up more power play goals per game than any other team in the league. That feels almost impossible when you think about all the great defensive Minnesota teams that we've seen over the last decade.
And they've given up, 19 power play goals this season?
Something power play goals against in 17 games. Like, they're on pace. They're on pace to give up something like 88 power play goals against, which, what? You know what I mean? It feels like just bonkers stuff, but And it's not just like the goaltending's been bad, don't get me wrong, but I was looking at the penalty kill numbers since Jared Spurgeon returned. The penalty kill numbers are terrible. They're giving up the 4th most shots against per minute. Whoever's running that penalty kill has got to be fired. Like, I don't want people to lose their jobs, but like, how much more do we need to see here? It's like, holy God. But so that's kind of the conundrum with Colorado here tonight is like, it's a pretty bad 5-on-5 matchup, but all they really need is like one goal at 5-on-5, like one lucky shot or one nice play, and they can get there the rest of the way through the power play. That's kind of the issue that I'm running into. Now, they are super expensive. It might be a case where I don't know if you have to necessarily full stack, and if you don't want to stack them, like just go play Cale Makar or something like that. You know what I mean? So I really, really do like Colorado 1 here tonight, especially with their ownership as low as it is, like it's going to be 20%, but like considering it's probably the best power play, that this is a better power play matchup than San Jose speaks volumes about the way this Minnesota team is being coached. Like something's got to change, man, because it is really just blowing my mind that this team is worse than Montreal and San Jose on the penalty kill. And
throw Russo behind the bench. He'll get shit done.
Yeah. So like I do like Colorado 1. It's just a tough 5-on-5. Like they have to get there on the power play. That's just kind of the whole problem here. The Ross Wood line I think is fine, but Minnesota's 5-on-5 defensive numbers have actually been getting better, and none of them are on the power play. Like that's kind of the issue. Is like it's not a good 5-on-5 matchup for the Avs at all. And none of them are on the power play. So it's like I'll pass on the Ross Wood line. On the Minnesota side, like I wrote up Marco Rossi in the picks article. You're right. Like they don't have great expected goals numbers. I'm going to be honest. I don't expect that line to have great expected goals numbers anyways with the way that they create their offense. And Matt Zuccarello has been getting better. Like I did slam him after the first like 2 or 3 weeks of the season. His scoring chance contribution numbers have been getting a lot better over the last few weeks, like back closer to where he was, even 2 years ago. So I do like Minnesota 1 going up against the second and third lines from Colorado. Colorado does have a good penalty kill, but they do take 4 power. They're about 4 times shorthanded per game this season, a little under that, which is amongst the worst marks in the league. So I do like Minnesota 1 here. They're not coming in with a whole lot of ownership. Whoops, as you mentioned, 6% on DraftKings here tonight. So Minnesota 1 for me. Minnesota 2 is a little interesting. Boldy, Johansson, and Gaudreau. It seems like an interesting combination, but it also feels like one of those lines where I'm going to wait to see if it's good before I actually assume it's good. You know what I mean? So I think it's Minnesota 1 for me. Colorado 1. Minnesota 2 is interesting, especially where Boldy's on the top power play unit. But I'm going to take a wait and see approach there. So, kind of chalky, I guess, but I think it's both top lines here or nothing.
Yeah. It's Clayton here. Write this down, Clayton. Ryan Johansson sucks. Let's get
He just had to say it.
Yeah. Oh, man. Like, I know the Sharks are on this slate, but Seattle's on this slate, and they just killed me. Vancouver Canucks with a 3.3 total heading into Seattle. The Kraken have a 3.2 total. We have found the chalk fillers, my friends. Again, Gord, Tolvin, and Bjorkstrand under 12,000, coming in with 12.5% projected ownership. Eberle, Beniers, McCann over 11% projected ownership. I was telling you before the show, like, this ownership is arguably worse than the ownership that they had against the Sharks. Like, I would rather play them against the Sharks at 15 to 18% ownership than 12% against the Canucks. Like, I get it. Like, it's the Canucks, and they're due for regression. They're due to get run over. I like Demko. Like, I get it. It's price driven, and Gjord, Tolvin, and Bjorkstrand have been very good. Beniers, Eberle, McCann have been very good. I just can't do it, especially when looking on the other side of the ice here. Pettersson, Kuzmenko, Mikheyev coming in at 1 point.
I don't know. I just saw the lineup update from Vancouver. Came out about 20 minutes ago. We got Slam and Sam Lafferty in Kuzmenko's place.
Wow.
Kuzmenko, it doesn't look like, because Kuzmenko took, I think it was a shot to the face. Maybe he just needs to rest. No, from last week.
Okay.
I have no idea what the injury is. I just know he's not at the morning skate. They have Sam Lafferty in his place.
Is Beauvillier on the second line still?
Yeah, he's playing with Miller and Besser.
Okay, we still have that. You look at now that Beauvillier is up on the second line. You have Beauvillier, Besser, and JT Miller at 1.2% projected ownership. Even that doubles 2.5%. I'd much rather play them than like Tolvin and Bjorkstrand and Gord at 12%. Yeah, Seattle is good defensively. Like their lines have been good defensively, and their penalty kill has been pretty good. Their goaltending has surprisingly been okay, but like Vancouver can just murder somebody on the power play. It's kind of like the Rangers conundrum. You don't play Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider for their 5-on-5 prowess. You play them because Zibanejad is going to take a slap shot from the dot and Kreider's going to tip it in. So, like, if you're going to give me these guys at 1-2% for their power play, I'm interested.
So, here's what I'm thinking. With Kuzmenko out, is Beauvillier going to the top power play unit? Because he might be.
Yeah, because who took, was it Garland who took the spot the last time? Because he was out. I know Hronek went up there when Kuzmenko left in game, but like I think they just wanted two defensemen because they were up late. I'm not sure.
I'm just wondering, like, yeah, maybe they want to do like a double defenseman or something like that. But I mean, I think there's a reasonable chance that Beauvillier ends up on the top power play unit. Like that feels like something last year. Yeah, that's why I'm thinking. It's because, and Beauvillier didn't get there until Rick Tocchet. Like they basically like right around the same time, because they got there just after the All-Star break. So like that might be a perfectly correlated line now, Beauvillier, Besser, and JT Miller. And like you were saying, not much ownership on them per the Top Stacks tool, 1.3%. And I think it's just to kind of get that line going as well. Like they weren't playing that well in November, 2.3 expected goals for, 3.3 expected goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Miller and DiGiuseppe had not been shooting the puck a lot. And Beauvillier, like, he's not like a tremendous, like he's not a hidden gem winger or anything like that, but I do think he's a middle six scoring winger that was kind of miscast on their fourth line. And now he's finally getting, you know, he was really good for the Islanders for years on the second line. Like not excellent, but like a 50-point player, which is good enough. And like I think Miller, Besser, and Beauvillier is my favorite line in this game. The reason for that is that it's a bad matchup for them at 5-on-5 for Vancouver. Seattle's been really good defensively over the last month. But Seattle's penalty kill still sucks. Like they're bad, and it hasn't been getting better. So there's a chance that all three guys are going to be on the same power play unit. If not, you're going to get.
Someone just in our Discord said it's Hronek practicing on power play 1 this morning.
I mean, you still get, well, I mean, in that case, you get Miller and Besser on the top power play unit, and then Pettersson's by himself from his line, right? So I think it just makes even more sense to go to Miller, Besser, and Beauvillier. For my
DiGiuseppe, you might as well play him with Beauvillier.
Yeah, that's probably the best point you could probably make about this. But it is a really good power play matchup for him. Vancouver gets there on the power play. Like we've been saying that for like 2 years now, and not a whole lot has changed. So I do like the Miller line here. I think they're a nice under-owned road line here that could surprise. Like, I get not wanting to play them in single entry, but they do seem to be in a spot where they can take advantage of a really bad Seattle penalty kill at very low ownership for a 6-gamer. Like, you know, say what you want about how hot Vancouver is riding. Like, Besser's still been on an incredible goal-scoring tear basically this entire season. JT Miller, one of the leading point producers basically this entire season, and they're coming in at 1% on a 6-gamer in a good power play matchup. Like, I like the Miller, Besser, Beauvillier line here on Seattle. Like, holy Christ.
I'm glad we feel the same way about this.
I'm so tired of this team, man. My favorite line is still the Beniers, McCann, Eberle line. What I hate is that they're split on the power play units. I wish they would just put them all in the same power play unit, but there's one of Seattle's power play units has guys from 4 different lines on it. So like, that's the other problem here is like you want to take advantage of Vancouver's penalty kill. Vancouver also has a bad penalty kill. It's like, which Seattle line would you go to for correlation? Like McCann and Everly are both on the same power play unit, I guess. So like you can do that, but it's the bad power play unit. It's the Justin Schultz one. So like, it's Seattle one for me. Play any of these Seattle lines you like. I don't think like there's no matchup on Vancouver where I would say, oh, like this is a tremendous matchup. Like I guess it would be against the JT Miller line, but JT Miller also plays with Hughes quite a bit when they're on the road. So like, yeah, Beniers, Everly, and McCann. I'm just tired of this team.
Oh, I hate this team. I hate the Sharks more, but like, it's just like this team.
Honestly,
like,
I would rather this game was Vancouver at San Jose. I think I would be more inclined to play San Jose.
I mean, there's Vancouver San Jose tomorrow night for our late hammer. That's why we're going to be drinking.
I can't wait.
Yeah, Concussions and Claws. This is sponsored by the Saturday show. Like, Seattle really does just drive me nuts. It's like, I don't even know if Dave Haxtell is a good coach, but he is an awful coach for DFS. Awful.
That's for sure.
Anyway, coming up after us at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Daylight Time, NBA Deeper Dive with Josh Engelman and Adam Schur, then 6:30 p.m. Eastern, NBA Live Before Lock with Greg Ehrenberg and Matt Bellman. So if you are a baller, make sure to stick around for that. Once again, thank you to Vivid Picks for sponsoring this show. You can take advantage of that offer by clicking the link in the description below. Let's talk a little bit about defensemen and goaltenders here. Obviously, at the top of the board, Makar and Hughes, I think they're both in play. Now, if you don't want to get to Hughes, obviously, if Hronik is power play 1, which sounds like he is, he's going to be a very good play tonight at 4,900. But I think Makar makes a ton of sense here with, how bad the Minnesota Wild penalty kill is. Who else you liking?
I mean, Jacob Chychrun, like, until Shabbat gets back, like, I do like Chychrun, and the Islanders are a pretty high-paced team, which feels weird to say, but they are. So, like, there are going to be a lot of opportunities for both shots and shot blocks. In the mid-price range, I wrote up Miro Heiskanen in the picks article. He's blocking a lot more shots this year. His shots on goal have gone down, but it's simply a matter of missing the net. Like, if his shot attempts were on net with the same rate as his last 3 years, like his shots per game would be bang on what they were last year. So I do like Heiskanen. I think Brent Burns is priced a little too cheap for a team with such a high total. Brandon Montour obviously still fine, especially I think on FanDuel, his price is still very reasonable. For cheap guys, Adam Larson, Seattle is at the top of my list. The big problem with him earlier in the year is he was blocking shots, but he literally put up 0 points in 4 weeks. He's actually he's not a big point producer, but he can be a 30-point defenseman. And he's starting to produce a little bit lately. So I really do like Adam Larson here tonight. Alex Romanov from the Islanders. I think he's going to have to block some shots here. Ian Cole from Vancouver as well. Not a lot of super cheap guys that I like here tonight in this matchup. Like, I think Eric Brandstrom at 2,500 for Ottawa would be my super punt du jour, but that's about it.
Yeah, I guess you can also play the Finnish Jake if you wanted at min price, Yanni Hakanpää. He gets 19, 20 minutes. Doesn't do too much with it, but at least he's out there. He can maybe block 3 shots, but yeah. Jake's better looking anyway. He's got that Giga Chad jawline. Let's talk a little bit about goalies. Demko, top of the list, 8,400. Actually don't mind that. I really don't. I don't really spend up there too often, but don't mind that. Ottinger, 8,300. People just give us crap for Ottinger all the time. He's a good goalie. You can play him. Georgiev, I don't mind. Bob is a little bit wild. I don't know if I'd pay 8K for him. Then going down the list, Vasilevsky is the sore thumb. It sticks out like a sore thumb. 7,300 against Carolina. We love targeting goalies against Carolina. Anyone else you liking?
Yeah, I think for me, Anton Forsberg, I think is certainly in play for Ottawa. He was really good last year. He had a really bad first few games this year, certainly. but had a pretty good game in Europe. If he's turned things around a little bit, it's a really good matchup for him at home, 7,400 on DraftKings against an Islanders team that struggles to score a lot, but do create a lot of shots. So, I think Forsberg does make sense. Like, the guy that stuck out to me was Hellebuck. He had 3 really bad games in a row to start the year, and then since then he's really locked things down. Shot volume's probably a little bit of a concern, but they are facing Florida that does create a lot of shots. So Hellebuck, Forsberg, Vasilevsky would be my cheap goalies. The expensive one is Jake Ottinger. Calgary is like New York Islanders West, where they can create a lot of shots, but often not a lot of goals. So do like Ottinger amongst the expensive options tonight.
What about Markstrom at 7,100?
Yeah, I can get behind it. I honestly do worry about volume just because like the Dallas just isn't creating a lot. You know what I mean? Like, this could be a game where he only faces like 27 shots, and like 2 goals against on 27 shots is enough to kind of not ruin a fantasy night, but he won't have a great score. Like, I'm just wondering, like, other than a shutout, what's the path to him having like a 25 DK point night? And I think it's pretty thin. That's kind of my only issue.
Yeah, I mean, if you're down to the cheapest goalies, it's Markstrom or Joey Decord, and I think I'd rather play Markstrom. But like,
yeah, I mean, I agree with that for sure. Yeah,
it's just there's not, unless Vladar starts, there's no one under 7K, and I definitely don't want to play Vladar. So,
fair.
This slate. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
It's not off the board, but I wrote him in my picks article. I do like the line here tonight, so I'll just go with it. Marco Rossi.
I had a feeling you were going with that, so I had a backup plan, because if you weren't going to say it, I was going to say it. I'm also in the same game, though, but not the person you're thinking. Going Cale Makar.
Oh, that'd be something. Dueling hat tricks between Marco Rossi and Cale Makar would be like one of the best hockey nights I've had this year. So
I would love it. Yes. We will be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern for our crazy Saturday slate. We always ramp it up a little bit on Saturdays, a little bit looser show. I just got a notification the Dolphins are in the red zone. Surprise, surprise. The Jets fucking suck. But anyway, we'll be back tomorrow. Good luck, everybody. Smash that like button. See you in the Discord. See you tomorrow.
Good luck tonight, everyone.